episode begins. Hello, everyone. The title of tonight's episode is Nature's Voice in the Eyes of Man. And so the focus is beyond sight. And so, as creatures, our sight is our world. And within our sight, there is the presence of attention. When you wonder about the worlds in front of your eyes, there are ones that are filled and given meaning by definition. If you want to conduct yourself well in external reality, you have to begin, in some sense, sculpting new definitions upon your experiences. The internal reality is going towards the undefinable. It is going towards the instantaneous. It is going towards um, it is going towards nature's laws, but nature's laws within are, in some sense, the negation of the external law. So what I'm okay, that could here. I'll speak like this. When we wonder about the mind is not something tangible, but it is something that we say it is present. It is our awareness. I'm pretty sure everybody's mind is being their moment right now, and what they consider to be their mind is, in some sense, how they are receiving their moment. When you study the moment, you begin, in some sense, reverse engineering through the dualities you have been conditioned into, in some sense. You have not just been spoon-fed food as a child when you were being born. You were also being spoon-fed ideology. External sight seems to be purposeful as much as there is an internal value extraction from it. Right now I'm sitting here, I'm looking at this computer, and where the meaning of how this is a computer to me, that value is not external and is not tangible. And so in life, we have to confront a sense of value change when your value system changes based on emptiness and fullness. And when things begin to leave your reality, you begin learning from the void. When things begin entering reality, you begin learning from in some sense, the intelligence of an infinite effort. Because existence seems to be continuing. Nature was a very profound catalyst for me. Because nature was a moment prior to having to associate with thought. It was a moment of just an unspeakable attention, and this unspeakable attention, in some sense, for the first time, became the whole moment, not a part of the moment. The paradigm has been man in a world. We are now beginning to discover, as technology evolves and as many things came into history, for example, when writing became popular, you know, and other forms of medium developed, they were in some sense a way where what entered through sight into the invisible room of awareness, what entered your mind, became your mind, and then you see beyond what you became. You throw away your past because the future is waiting. You throw away your future because the present has nowhere to go. You come to an ultimate conclusion. You come to a realization that what you consider to be fact is based on how you can receive the sensory. That means when your sensory perception changes, your world changes. When this biological body goes through turbulence, it receives the world differently. And in some sense, it is growing with the design. When I was younger, I looked at the human body and I was in some sense baffled by it. Not baffled in the sense like not understanding, biology. I was baffled by why the design, you know. And even though nature had chosen, that we can say it is a product of evolution, it's as if from the dirt thing arose beyond. So in some sense, I'm saying when you pay attention to design, nature's value changes, and it changes from how do I say it? Any moment the unknown gazes at you, or you find yourself in a moment where the room is too dark to see, but there are parts of it visible, as if you're a writer from ancient times, and a candle is lit on a simple table, and all you have is your words on the page. There's two ways where, in some sense, reality animates itself, I find. Either the inspiration comes from external reality. So, in front of your eyes, you see something that causes you to, in some sense, wonder how what you're seeing is being an effect of an unknown. You pretty much wonder why sight exists. And for me, it went into, it was kind of shocking because you can go ask any human being what is the purpose of life. And in some sense, I believe most of people's answers will relate to some sort of physical structure. But to wonder about materiality means to experience yourself in a possible way, as if the. All right, let me put a better sound. Pretty much our society, I find just how we consider knowledge to be valuable, or where our education is directed, typically as human beings in this modern age. It is towards discovering new structures that have not been seen. So believe it or not, we are kind of like those creatures that are saying we don't believe there's anything in the unknown, In the dark parts of the room, we don't see anything in the darkness. But at the same time, we are inspired by what we are explorers at the same time as we are doubters. You find your natural presence, you find your true nature, you in some sense find an unspeakable acceptance, an unconditional moment. There was this quote that said, it said, "Earth is my temple and nature is my religion." Before you can wonder about what aspects of your intelligence are man-made, you have to wonder about how the idea of man came about. And it came about through an acknowledgement of the symbol. Pretty much the stories of people are complex patterns of symbols. You observe these patterns, you go into moments where it's like an iceberg suddenly breaks from the rest. You find moments where you give yourself a freedom to this character in your own story that you begin to appreciate why they say direct experience is the greatest gift. The situation is like this where I've often pondered, every day I find the first sentence I ever wrote where I felt it was like an original sentence for me was I considered myself a writer before a speaker. So the first sentence I wrote was I don't want to live in a world that looks the same the next day. And that felt very new to me. It felt that my hope was in being able to amplify the depth of my experience throughout this life. And in some sense, it happens. That's what, in some sense, maturity is. It is you seeing, you going, um, you doing laps around the sun to realize a circle has nowhere to go. It's all one moment. Entertain this idea. You don't have to accept it, just entertain it. Just consider that all existence is one moment. This one moment finds itself in a wakefulness where its wakefulness is based on a difference. As if one moment divided into two when in man, when the creature on the surface of this earth detached from nature subjectively. And with that ability to consider itself individual, it's as if it created it either. I can't use the proper verb because I don't know, but I feel the subjective realm was animated by the anima. And anima is a Italian word for soul. That's how I'm using it. And so what I mean by that is that either the machine is in the spirit or the spirit is in the machine. We are living in an era in history where we are all believing the spirit is in the machine, which means that the machine is producing the spirit in some sense. Yeah. But if the machine was in the spirit, that would mean matter. That would mean consciousness was here first and then matter was seen, rather than matter was seen and then consciousness. You see, regardless of our results through experiments in fields of science, philosophy, um, um, biology, in many fields, technology, we are being drawn to an invisible vision which we are trying to make visible. When you ask somebody, it's like, what do you want to do in this life? you know, Obviously, the wise answer is, I don't know until I do it. But many people will have images of who they want to be, and their whole day is going to who they think they should be. It's as if a thought. My relationship with nature, with the material universe, was that I realized I'm not a thought because I can be aware of them. You know what I mean? Like right now, I'm looking at this computer. I'm not in the computer, so I can see the computer, as if me sitting here and the computer being there. As if I am beyond this computer's dimension. Do you see? However, if a character in a video game wanted to figure out who's playing this manifest existence, this virtual manifest existence for that video game character, that character will reach the void. And the void doesn't mean there's nothing, it just means you just can't see anymore. Because it's as if after a certain point of experiential cultivation, you no longer exist to yourself as only an individual. When you don't exist to yourself only as an individual, you begin having collective experiences of the moment. You forget everything that language has taught you and you explore it again. You look at the dictionary and you realize that is just a book of agreement. But the agreement is over the unknown, and the unknown is unknown. The edge of knowledge is the new, and the new and the unknown walk side by side. They are the children of the same royal family. For me, regardless, like whoever you are right now, whatever format of existence you find yourself present in, whatever you consider yourself to be, some insightful things that I guess Mr. Within can say is just listen to these sentences and somehow extract some sort of usefulness for yourself. But like the way I'm saying is realize you're not your thought. Realize you're not just this body. Realize all the segmentations and everything you have a word for, you're not. That includes all sciences, all religions, everything in the realm of language. Because if we are sometimes when you use a tool to figure out something, you have to carry the weight of the tool. And mankind has this kind of like double-edged sword where it's our greatest technology at the same time. It's our, you know, it's our downfall. It's like a stairs can be used in different ways. And so I find language to be a sort of stairs. You can use language to get caught into it and, in some sense, endlessly till the end of your days, animate, just generate labyrinths of infinite characteristics of yourself in various moments. Or you realize that there's a way you can be alive on this planet that they haven't taught. It's not something they could have even taught, you know. It's beyond any sort of enlightenment because it is a universal alignment through an inner abidance. So you see, most people are trying to change what happens to them externally. That's why we have brutes. That's why the animalistic behavior of the civilization has not found the gentleness. You know, like the ancient Greeks, they were very vast visionaries, and they had this sentence, this statement that's evidently passed down throughout, the years, the generations, and the quote is to tame the savageness of man and make gentle the life of this world. What that means is we are born in chaos, ladies and gentlemen. And so to fear, to be depressed, stress, all this stuff doesn't make sense because we're born in chaos. But this chaos exists to have, in some sense, a reciprocating order. The chaos lives for the order. The order lives for the chaos. Because their attention will endlessly be on one another. For me, I'm saying that you can, your intelligence, like, okay, here, I started off in this lifetime, okay, like in this life, you know, believing I was a body that would think thoughts, okay? I thought that thoughts were in some sense me. Not me, just something I create. They were the brushstrokes of my attention, okay? In some sense. But I'm telling you, it went to a point where I realized the great lie. And the greatest lie is not what one the external world has told your inner world. It's the lie your inner reality is in some sense accepted. It has said it to itself. You have lied to yourself, believe it or not, and that is why there's confusion. When we are conditioned to be individual creatures, okay? Like there's some people I've had discussions with where they say like, just some people look at the educational system and they believe it's conquered by the business realm. They believe that educational systems are just exist for employment. And then people believe that employment is the ultimate route, and it is, of course, for society to exist, to survive. You do require to play the games of life, whether they're vicious or not, you know. And we are so conditioned to want to know things all the time before we act that we never explore our unknown sometimes. For many years, we go on being in the same belief system, you know. And a belief system is just you haven't changed the way you've been looking at things. That's a belief. Because nobody, in some sense, after like 10 years, that man, like 10 years ago, I did not have the same beliefs I have now. I had a certain common awareness. Like I real like some of the big things I realized was one, that first of all, we don't create thoughts, we receive them as like an antenna receiving waves. Okay? And the result of these waves, these subtler waves, which I feel we still don't have, technological instruments to see, but I feel there's a sort of subtler influence going on right beneath the sensory. So what that means is our sensory perception, like right now we say, like right now where I'm sitting, light, like a candlelight is hitting my eyes. The reflection of the candlelight from the wall is like I'm seeing that, okay? And this light, in some sense, opens up the room, the designs of the room. So in some sense, existence did not exist until there was a light in this empty room of the cosmos, and that light was consciousness. And I have no idea, in some sense, how, like, if many religious people consider Adam and Eve, how, if there was, how there can I feel the most primitive ancestors, even prior, you can say, to any sort of conscious, self-aware, naming itself kind of entity, we feel we are in a problem where we need to find a solution, but it's actually how the problem is an illusion because everything's in the solution. And what that means is that your inner reality has a significance, and there you have been intelligent in a way where you have not acknowledged. You know how, when I was younger, I heard, like, there was this article that said people, the average human being uses, what is it, like, from a ratio of 10 to maybe like 12% of their brain or something, you know, and so much potential of the brain that is left dormant. Okay, so when I heard that, I wondered about the possibilities, and that is why we're alive. When I'm in my waking state, the way I function is like, okay, it's like I'm in a world of shape, and I'm in a world of shape where there are certain shapes that require more priority, as if like you got to take care of yourself before you can even take care of others. You see, and in the efforts of grand vision, sometimes we get exhausted by the requirement of endurance. For me, it's like, just, I'll be honest, like, if you ask me who I am, like, I could definitely tell you, like, my name, where I was born, like my whole, like, life story and all this. But on an honest level, I am just a moment of wakefulness and phenomena is occurring. And due to some unique force that is common with the origin of consciousness, and when I say the origin of consciousness, like right now, that you're awake right now, okay? You listening to this talk means that you're in the waking state of existence, okay? And in this waking state, I'm telling you that it's like asking yourself why it's shaped, and realizing that it's like a flashlight in an empty room, you know. Not a flashlight in an empty room. It's like a flashlight in a forest where a lot of this forest is terra incognita. It has not been brought into conscious relevance or reference. Civilization is a series of reference points. Life is just different stories we imprint upon it momentarily. So when I sleep and I wake up, when chaos comes, my ego is I don't even there's no thought of desire. There's no thought. When I feel that the experience of the temporary is going to be intensified, I in some sense stop wanting to move the temporary. As if like your car, you're driving this vehicle, as if eternity is driving a temporary vehicle, and suddenly the temporary vehicle is making some noise, and it's just the guy's just pulling to the side of the road rather than continuing on with a framework uh, that is not as efficient as it could be. You see, Michelangelo, I consider him to be a fascinating being. Michelangelo, the Italian sculptor. He has a quote where he says, like, I saw the angel in the stone and I set it free. And if you just bask in the brilliance of the depth of that statement from Michelangelo, you begin to see that is what life has been. We are sculpting meaning out of matter. And while we're doing it, we have concluded we're mainly matter in modern culture. But in all the ancient traditions, they say Purusha and Prakriti are simultaneous. Do you see? So I'm saying our knowledge is limited to language, and language is limited to a realm where, because it's evolving referentially, it cannot just suddenly change, and hence cannot suddenly see the whole picture. As if you're so stuck on looking at the corner of this cosmic painting, and only in one corner of it you just want to believe it in a certain way, look at it in a certain way, have a certain idea of it. And in some sense, it's a spoiledness of a young species. You find a solace through the turbulence of how you pilot your consciousness due to a certain range of material free will. If you notice behind your eyes, you have a freedom that you do not have in front of your eyes. Behind your eyes, you could look at any object in front of your eyes and wonder, and in that moment of wonder, have many different ideas on the same object. And the object is in some sense what is an attention. So you realizing that you are a creature of attention, and you self-inquiring into the pure presence of your attention it is better. It is much better than any sort of promised reward of a heaven or enlightenment. To study your intelligence. It's not about, and like, don't get caught into the stories. You know, the idea of enlightenment is just the surface. And I believe the Buddha understood this. The Buddha understood this, that silence holds the truth. For the truth in noise is but a temporary change of an endless process of a material phenomenon or shaped phenomenon. I will not, like, I can't, like, if somebody asks me about certain metaphysical experiences, if I've had any, I would say that my mind has animated the moment in many ways, in many storylines. Like, if I was to count the different ways I've looked at life since now, it's like countless, you know. And what I mean is that once your personality stops searching and stops chasing that carrot connected with the rope to the stick in front of this bewildered, trying to survive creature, once your personality understands that the wisdom of patience is the depth of dimension, as if that some have said patience breeds success. And what does that mean? That means in patience, you see more before you do more. And the ultimate sight will lead to an instantaneous presence of no meaning. That means it's as if like we're this moment, and this moment is like the center of a circle, and we are having endless degrees. Like 360 degrees, like different lines can be drawn from the center of this moment to the edgeless unknown. You know. However, the center point is empty. That means there is an intelligence through emptiness looking through form. This intelligence, once many people noticed it, it led to the generation of, it led to a mission. Don't you find it interesting that religion was founded by people who looked at the world and felt there was something to do more than themselves? You see, because like who wants to, like, a person, I think like back in the day, just wants to like sit in a comfortable place and just live comfortably, right? I mean, like the same way we see, you know, the kids of our current world, you know, we see a lot of people partying, okay, and there's nothing wrong. It's partying is fine. And like I've seen on Instagram, like there's this page called like rich kids of like some country. I don't remember what country, but and I was just looking at how it was like the peak of objective satisfaction, right? And I like Instagram is awesome. Like just by seeing that picture, I instantly got it. Like I wasn't interested in the stuff I saw, but I'm telling you, it's like the same way we want to survive comfortably till the end. The same when bullets are being fired in a battlefield, the immediate action is a sort of barrier or shelter or safety to get out of harm. And for the advanced communicator, when I speak to you, dear audience, I don't consider like I just consider pretty much people in two modalities, you know. And what I mean by that is you, we are all advanced communicators. We're just using our intelligence through the wrong lens, and we be curious to find your presence. That means, like, for me, generate behind your eyes. It's not just as easily provided. So think of it this way: there's this person. He goes into a gathering. Okay, he goes into you know, let's say a family gathering. Okay, the person goes there and immediately notices the presence of different beings. You know, for me, when I see people, each of them is like a unique work of art. You know, but based on their self-awareness, that work of art is accessible, is beautiful or not. That person who goes in a room and doesn't think, yo, like just doesn't think like the names of the people, doesn't think of like their personalities, but rather just feels the presence of how the moment is there. For me, I there was I have had moments where you know, I saw the ignorance of my early, like my childhood, and then I was very disappointed. There have been moments where I can say, you know, usually, it's others that become disappointed in people, but I have become the most disappointed for myself. Like I have been disappointed by myself in many moments where I was wondering if the idea of myself in that moment was necessary to keep her. You see, a lot of people, when I see the concept of suicide, I see an unnecessary confusion. The reason I see an unnecessary confusion is because rather than detaching from the thought of suffering, you're willing to get rid of your biology first. It's like the lazy man's approach to clarity, or not to clarity, to some sort of resolution. And for me, it's a very complex thing. Life is a tragedy and a comedy. But your presence is the director. Don't go into rooms thinking or suddenly ascribing thoughts to what you see. Abide as a present moment. And for me, I'll tell you something fascinating. Something, believe it or not, I said it in a public gathering, like in a. I've been only asked once to speak publicly in my life, for now at least, you know. And when I was asked, I said a statement where I was like, so many people go on trips throughout the day, throughout their life, but they don't realize in their waking state, their awareness doesn't change. It shows, it's as if location is in your awareness, but the awareness is non-local, as it is aware of the locality. It's as if we are more intelligent than objects. That's why we use objects. Okay. Now imagine we become more intelligent than organic matter, and then what will we be? Will we suddenly realize that what the Elder Scrolls have preached, the Elder Scrolls of Wisdom have preached, that energy is energy. The moment is the moment, regardless of the what is ascribed to it. For me, it's a moment of honor. It's a moment. It's like the after effect of freedom is honor, and or one can say even the after effect of victory is honor too. Observe your presence not only in noise and movement, but in stillness and silence. Realize every day occurs once. This is why, believe it or not, I'm inspired to give these Mr.Within talks. Because I realize my eyes are open once in this way, on this day. When you realize that, you suddenly become a fascinating, intelligent being to yourself. Because you realize every day's gaze, or the way you look at the day, is based on that day. It is based on the decisions. So, children and shyness and isolation, the solution to it is the person first, rather than trying to solve this, unreachable problem, to try to solve reachable problems. When you, when I say let your attention just be present and just watch and observe yourself to understand how this self is interpreting others. At some point, you acknowledge fear and suffering and chaos as just part of the job. And what I mean by that is that your attention can go to many things in this life. Sometimes your attention can even be conditioned to be stuck somewhere. But once you realize you don't have to be a certain personality that you momentarily, your attention just gazes like you think about, in some sense. Your presence is divine. Your presence is like heaven. Your personality is like earth. And I'm talking about it in a Zen modality, so in some sense I'm not trying to evoke the concept of a hell. But this does not reject the concept of a lesser world, because the problem with blindness is that it is a division of a world. The moment the concept of blindness exists, that means there's something to see not being seen. There's something left to explore about your intelligence which you have not explored. You saw once you realize, like when you, like, I'll give you this example. When the vehicle is on the driver, but when you are in your own car, you can't suddenly, like, you can't be in the highway and then pull down your window and suddenly shout to the guy, "Yo, man, how do I make a right turn?" How do I turn right? Or like the whole point is that the moment you're alone, you become super smart because you are left with yourself, and you can only move yourself. But when you are with others, the responsibility for your search and for who you are is on a different level. It is based on many social structures of emotions and characters, as if, like, when a person feels judged in society, like, behind their eyes, many moments in their past are also being lit up. Many ways they have lived are suddenly finding into that pattern because the whole system is being judged. you know for me, it's very strange. It's so strange because in religion there's this concept of how there was a moment where people were worshiping, like, physical idols, in some sense a sort of pantheism. And however, there was the story of Abraham and Ibrahim, where he, like, pretty much people are worshiping statues or like their own objects or whatever they put, and then he breaks all the other gods except one of the gods in the god room, like in the Kaaba, in some sense. Mecca, that's in some sense fits in, is part of the story, um, of you know Mecca. But in that room there were many, what do you call it, many objects, okay, many idols of worship. And suddenly Abraham breaks all of them except one and puts the bat or shovel or whatever beside that one statue. All those people come in and they're like, "Oh my God, our gods are broken," which I think is like one of the best statements, because in some sense, creatively for the Western mind, a broken god is a broken authority. However, in that moment when the idols were broken, and then Abraham was like, "No, this god destroyed all the other gods." Suddenly, those people began waking up from this slumber of immense belief they had that an object was the representation of the ultimate. Do you see? For me, religious texts are very profound mirrors, and mirrors that should, in some sense, be studied with a compassion and tolerance to learn, you know? Because compassion, there's two ways it's inspired. One way you see somebody like in shoes you've worn before, and you automatically have an affinity, and like you understand what they're going for. You're just compassionate, you know. And then there's a compassion where the result of being a peaceful, creatively fueled um, civilization, it is how there is a win-win situation of more being seen by all. Your presence is nature's voice in the eyes of man, and the eyes of man are most immediately being his personality. So pretty much your sight, your when light goes through your eyes, there's like this abstract container, again the invisible room, where thoughts in some sense roam. um, You see life's games, you see beyond the player you were taught to be, you become a moment of direct experience, which means a moment of which means a moment of in um, certain direction. Not certain, but what's the word I'm You pretty much don't describe a personality to your to what you feel is looking out through your eyes. Most people try to put it into words. There's this Zen story which is very profound. In this Zen story, there's a man sitting on just a grass field and he's alone and it's a peaceful, beautiful day, and suddenly he gets a very profound revelation by just sitting still and silent. He just notices something about the world he didn't see before. You know, the moment he gets this revelation, as the Zen story I read online goes, um, the man gets this very profound realization. And then a creature in another dimension, in the story they said a minion, a dark minion, runs to the Dark Lord and says, Dark Lord, they've understood something about the truth. This man's understood the truth about the world, about everything, about the moment. And so the Dark Lord gives a very profound response, which is the moral of the story. The Dark Lord tells the minion, don't worry about it, because he will make a belief out of it. He will see truth, and rather than stand in the honest presence of it, try to personalize it. We're personalizing the world all the time, not just personalizing our phones. Michelangelo saw the angel in the stone and set it free, and that guy in that story got a revelation of some truth and put it into it suddenly, a certain belief. For me, you know who truly is a listener of these Mr. Within talks? A being who realized everything they have heard ever, and the images that they have had of everything they have heard is their reality. As the bells ring and the knights come home to the kingdom after the battle, there is a contentment and gratefulness worthy of celebration. Tilopa, I don't remember the exact quote, but Tilopa, this Tibetan Buddhist sage, I have a very profound respect for all cultures because, in some sense, all cultures there's more to see from. And ideas are just what is on the shoulder of giants. The giant is done in this moment, and you divide it into a character in a story. You have divided yourself in a character in a story. You know, that's pretty trippy. You know, I once like laughed at something that this thought that came to me. Like I was just laughing for a minute, and it was like as if they asked this profound philosopher like his last words for his legacy or whatever, and they're like, "What was life, man? You know, you saw so much. What is life?" And the guy's answer is like, I don't know, man. It's weird. That's what life is. It's weird. That means it's changing faster than our ability to refer to it accurately. And we may think that, we're on Earth and, on our car, we're going with like 50 kilometers per hour, but the speed the planet is orbiting around the sun is beyond the speed that we feel we go. Your personality is on the shoulder of giants, and that giant is your presence, and your presence is your whole moment, and bask in it. And that Tibetan Buddhist sage that named Tilopa, what he said was that after you've attained, after you've seen that ultimate glimpse, you know, you abide and rest in the clarity you have cultivated, and understand that life is also cyclical. For me, duality is what needs to be looked at. And duality means separation. And separation is the story of the world. Because if we wanted this an all like if somehow we don't mess up the surface of the earth and we're still around like thousands of years from now, the next evolutionary leap is as if we will move into the subjective. As if a creature was born in a material universe and in some sense evolved into in a reality where the possibilities were endless. Think of it this way: the same approach that perhaps the the fog of technology may have, in the sense that I remember seeing this artwork where this kid was just in the corner of the room, just drooling with a virtual reality headset machine connected to it onto his face, but the artist had drawn it in a futuristic way. And so when I saw that, I realized it's as if we want to escape into a world of freedom. That which is experiencing within the body has now understood that the whole world is the body and wants to experience a greater body. As if the caterpillar, which is a representation of the material universe, once experiencing uh, the fullness of having legs, begins to then become a creature that experiences its wings. You know, and for me, that's the situation. That's the situation. After the design that this lifetime has, we are going to experience all the things we couldn't in our next lifetime, if you choose to still be a personality by that point. For me, it is an honor, it is a privilege to be alive. And it is a privilege to be alive with so many people in this world, and we all have this internet where, even though it's a fascination, like some have said, Elon Musk said, the internet is like the nervous system of the species, in some sense, of the linguistic self of the species, I would add. But anyways, there is so much yet to be seen. And study your sight, study your senses. Sometimes these yogis that went into stillness and silence, all these people meditating, their meditation wasn't to just, not have thoughts. It was to be aware of how the self is being awareness. Nature's voice is in the eyes of man. I thought I was me. I realized me is actually nature. And I realized nature is beyond sight. So we play around, we are playful with our waking state, but we are serious, as if as a moment of being. As if in one angle you're serving your world, and in another angle you're commanding your world. Your mind is commanding your world. Your body is serving that command. We see it like this, right? And I mean, I find the majority may consider this. And the mind is an infinite identification with existence. The body is a finite identification with existence. And there's an attention oscillating between both. To one quote I'm going to share from Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj, I believe I shared this in last night's talk too. Um, Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj says, "When I see that I am nothing, that is wisdom. When I see I am everything, that is love." And between these two, in between these two, my life moves. The body is destined to sleep, the mind is destined to awaken. A man found Bodhidharma one night, this patriarch of Buddhism, this very enlightened being, and tried tirelessly to get this man's attention, and this man was in a deep meditation. Bodhidharma steps out of his meditation, and as he's walking, he sees this guy, and this guy constantly pleads. He says, "Bodhidharma, help me, you gotta help me, you gotta help me. You know, I can't sleep, you gotta help me." And so Bodhidharma is like at first not even acknowledging this guy, as if like the dude's in a state where for him it doesn't matter, like matter is just matter, you know. And so suddenly this man cuts off his hand, like one of his hands, and holds it in another hand and looks at Bodhidharma as a sort of symbol of loyalty. I guess maybe they did that back in the day, I don't know. And he says, "Bodhidharma, let you have to pacify my mind. I am loyal to you." Something like this. He says something like he pledges some sort of undying loyalty to Bodhidharma. And Bodhidharma is like, for him, it's like a dude, like a person in front of him just cut his hand, but his reaction is like, for him, he doesn't see just bodies. And he doesn't see even aside from other, like, non-bodies. But eventually Bodhidharma is like, "Okay, what's up?" You know. And the guy tells Bodhidharma, "Bodhidharma, I can't sleep at night. My mind is restless. Please pacify my mind." And there's a profound moment of silence. Bodhidharma tells the man, "Bring your mind here in front of me, and I'll pacify for you." And there is a sudden wave in this man's vision. The man suddenly looks around, thinks about it, and he's like, "I can't find my mind. How can I even bring it on the table in front of this guy?" He looks at Bodhidharma and says, I can't find the mind. And Bodhidharma looks at him and says, there, your mind is pacified. And it's said that the man attains enlightenment at that moment, nirvana. A state of clarity to see life as is. And that man realized that his sleepless nights were all powered by a momentary attention to an abstract design. Study your moment of being, it will fascinate you. For nature has always spoken through the eyes of man. Behind your eyes, and behind the thoughts you have on your eyes, the whole universe is watching. All existence is here. Much blessings and namaste.